The Warship That Shocked the Universe. Part 1. The USS Defiant floated silently against the backdrop of distant stars. Captain Jack Bennett stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. After 15 years in space, Jack still found the endless void beautiful. At 42, with salt and pepper hair and deep laugh lines around his eyes, he was considered young for a captain of such an advanced warship. "Status report, Lieutenant Blackwood," Jack said, turning to his tactical officer. Susan Blackwood looked up from her console. Her short blonde hair framed a face that rarely showed emotion, but her eyes were always alert and observant. "All systems normal, Captain. We'll reach the mining colony in about 3 hours." Jack nodded. This was supposed to be a routine patrol near the edge of human territory. The small mining colony on asteroid PT-775 had reported unusual sensor readings last week, but that was common in this region of space. Cosmic radiation often played tricks on their instruments. "Sir?" called Eric Jameson, the communications officer. "I'm picking up an emergency signal from the colony." Jack straightened immediately. On screen, the face of a middle-aged woman appeared, her expression tight with fear. Static cut through her message. "This is Colony Administrator Kelly Wilson. We have multiple unknown vessels approaching. They're not responding to hails. They don't match any known human configurations. Please, if anyone can hear this." The transmission cut off suddenly. "Red alert," Jack ordered, his voice calm but firm. "All hands to battle stations. Lieutenant Jameson, keep trying to re-establish contact." The bridge lights dimmed to a reddish glow as the alert sounded throughout the ship. "How long until we reach the colony?" Jack asked. "At maximum speed, 1 hour and 20 minutes, replied the helmsman, Linda Moore. "Push the engines as hard as you can." "Lieutenant Blackwood, what can our long-range sensors tell us?" Susan worked at her console, her fingers moving quickly. "Not much at this distance, sir. I'm detecting 7 vessels near the colony. They're unlike anything in our database." For nearly a century, humanity had explored space, establishing colonies and outposts across their solar system and beyond. But despite all their travels, they had never encountered intelligent alien life. Some believed it didn't exist. Others feared what might happen when first contact finally occurred. Jack had always believed they weren't alone in the universe. Now it seemed he was about to be proven right. "Send a message to Earth Command. Inform them of our situation and request any available ships in the sector to assist," Jack ordered. "Yes, sir," Jameson replied. As the Defiant pushed toward the colony, the bridge crew worked in focused silence. Jack felt the familiar knot of tension in his stomach that always came before potential combat. The Defiant was Earth's newest and most advanced warship, but without knowing what they faced, he couldn't be sure if that would be enough. "Entering visual range of the colony, Captain," announced Susan an hour later. "On screen," Jack ordered. The main view screen showed the asteroid colony, a collection of domed structures built into the rocky surface. Around it hovered 7 vessels of unfamiliar design. They were sleek, with a metallic purple-black surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each ship was shaped like a curved blade, elegant and obviously designed for speed and maneuverability. "Open a channel on all frequencies," Jack said. Jameson nodded. "Channel open, sir." Jack straightened his uniform jacket. "Attention unidentified. Vessels. This is Captain Jack Bennett of the Earthship USS Defiant. You have entered human territory and approached our colony without authorization. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. After a full minute, Jameson shook his head. "No response, Captain." "Try again," Jack ordered. Before Jameson could comply, Susan called out, "Captain, the alien vessels are powering up what appear to be weapon systems." "Shields up," Jack commanded. "Prepare to—" He was cut off as the view screen showed one of the alien ships firing a beam of intense blue energy at the colony. Part of the main dome erupted in a cloud of debris and escaping atmosphere. "They're attacking the colony," Linda exclaimed. Jack's face hardened. "Target the vessel that fired and return fire. Main phasers only." The Defiant's weapons officer, Frank Martinez, responded immediately. "Targeting, sir. Firing." Bright beams of energy lanced out from the Defiant toward the alien ship. To everyone's surprise, the beams seemed to weaken as they approached the target, barely impacting the alien vessel's hull. Direct hit, Frank reported, but minimal damage. They appear to have some kind of advanced shielding technology. Sir, Susan called out, her voice tense. 3 of the alien vessels are breaking off to intercept us. Jack gripped the arms of his captain's chair. Evasive maneuvers, continue firing all weapons, target their weapon systems if possible. The Defiant shuddered as it changed course, its engines pushing to maximum. The 3 alien ships followed with surprising agility, firing blue energy beams that made the Defiant's shields flare brightly with each impact. Shields at 70% and dropping, Susan reported. Their weapons are highly effective against our defenses. Jack knew they were outmatched, but abandoning the colony wasn't an option. Continue evasive maneuvers. Lieutenant Jameson, send an emergency signal to the colony. Tell them to evacuate immediately. We'll cover them as best we can. Yes, sir, Jameson responded, his fingers flying over his console. For the next 20 minutes, the Defiant engaged in a desperate battle, trying to draw the aliens' attention away from the colony while evacuation shuttles launched from the damaged structure. The ship took heavy damage but managed to land several solid hits on one of the alien vessels. Captain, Susan called out, I'm collecting data on their shield frequencies. If we adjust our weapons, we might be able to penetrate their defenses. Better. Do it, Jack ordered. The bridge shook violently as another hit landed. A panel exploded near the science station, sending sparks flying. Shields at 30%, Susan reported. Hull breaches on decks 5 and 6. Emergency force fields holding. Jack knew they couldn't win this fight. Not here, not now. Status of the colony evacuation? Final shuttles launching now, sir, Jameson replied. They report about 80% of colonists accounted for. Jack made the difficult decision. As soon as those shuttles are clear, set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to report this encounter and bring back what information we've gathered. Another hit rocked the ship. Shields at 15%, Susan called out. Sir, Frank said, I've adjusted our weapons as Lieutenant Blackwood suggested. Should I continue firing? One more volley, Jack decided. Target their lead ship, then we're getting out of here. The Defiant fired all weapons, the energy beams noticeably different in color and intensity. This time, they cut through the alien ship's shields, causing visible damage to its hull. Direct hit, Frank exclaimed. We've damaged their propulsion system. All shuttles clear of the colony, Captain, Jameson reported. Set course for Earth, maximum warp, Jack ordered. Lieutenant Blackwood, keep gathering all the data you can on those ships until we're out of range. As the Defiant turned and accelerated, away the damaged alien vessel fired one last shot. The blue beam struck the Defiant's stern, causing the entire ship to lurch violently. Engine room reports damage to the warp drive, Susan said, reading the incoming reports. We still have warp capability, but we're limited to warp factor 6. That will have to do, Jack said grimly. Are they pursuing? Susan checked her sensors. 2 vessels are attempting to follow, but it appears the damage we caused to their lead ship is slowing their response. We may be able to outrun them. The Defiant pushed its damaged engines to their limit, gradually pulling away from the alien ships until they were no longer on sensors. Only when they were safely away did Jack allow himself a moment to process what had happened. Humanity had finally made first contact with an alien civilization, and it had immediately turned hostile. As the ship limped toward Earth, Jack called a meeting of his senior officers in the conference room. The mood was somber as they assessed the damage and casualties. 17 injured, 3 critically, reported Dr. Natalie Wright, the ship's chief medical officer. No fatalities, thankfully. The colony wasn't so lucky, Jack said quietly. We need to compile all the data we've collected on these aliens. When we reach Earth, the Defense Council will need everything we have. Susan pulled up a holographic display of one of the alien ships. I've analyzed their technology as best I could. They're significantly more advanced than us in several areas, particularly weapons and shields. But there's something interesting. When we adjusted our phaser frequencies, we were able to penetrate their shields. Jack nodded thoughtfully. That might be important. Keep working on it. As the meeting concluded, Jack remained behind, staring at the holographic image of the alien ship. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it wasn't what anyone had hoped for. They had 2 weeks until they reached Earth. 2 weeks to prepare humanity for the reality that not only were they not alone in the universe, but they had already made enemies they might not be able to defeat. The warship that shocked the universe. Part 2. 6 months had passed since the USS Defiant's encounter with the alien vessels. Earth was on high alert. Military bases buzzed with activity. Civilian news channels spoke of little else but the Zylaxian threat, a name derived from a partial translation of the aliens' communications that had been intercepted after the battle. Alan Murphy sat in his small university office, surrounded by stacks of research papers and holographic displays showing complex equations. At 35, with unruly brown hair and perpetually wrinkled clothes, he looked more like a distracted graduate student than one of Earth's leading theoretical physicists. A knock at his door broke his concentration. "Come in," he called without looking up. Admiral Diane Powell entered, her tall frame filling the doorway. Her dark skin contrasted with her silver hair, cut in a practical military style. "Dr. Murphy, I'm Admiral Powell from United Earth Defense." Alan finally looked up, blinking as if coming out of a trance. "Admiral, what can I do for you?" "I've read your papers on energy manipulation and dimensional physics. Most of your colleagues think your theories are impossible." She sat down across from him. "I'm not most of your colleagues." Alan raised his eyebrows. "You understand quantum dimensional folding? Enough to know that your ideas might help us survive." She placed a datapad on his desk. "I'm reassigning you to the Defiant Refit project. You'll have full access to the data collected during the alien encounter and resources to implement your experimental systems." Alan's eyes widened. "You want to use my untested theories on your most advanced warship? That's risky." "Risky is facing those aliens again with our current technology," Powell replied. "Risk is all we have left." 2 weeks later, Alan stood in the massive orbital shipyard above Earth, staring up at the USS Defiant. Repair crews swarmed over its hull, fixing damage from the battle. The ship was larger than he had imagined from the diagrams, its sleek lines a blend of function and elegance. "Impressive, isn't she?" Alan turned to see a woman in an engineering uniform approaching. She was in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and intelligent, eyes that studied him carefully. "Dr. Murphy, I'm Lieutenant Commander Olivia Grant, Chief Engineer of the Defiant." She extended her hand. Alan shook it. "Nice to meet you. And yes, she's beautiful." "She's also hurting," Olivia said, her expression growing serious. "The damage was worse than it looked. But more importantly, we were outmatched. The Zylaxian weapons cut through our shields like they were tissue paper. That's why I'm here," Alan said, pulling out his datapad. "I have some ideas about that." Over the next hour, Alan explained his theories to Olivia. He showed her diagrams of a new kind of defensive system, not traditional shields, but something he called a dimensional displacement field. Instead of trying to block enemy weapons with energy shields, he explained, this field would partially shift the ship into an adjacent dimensional plane. Any weapon fire would mostly pass through the space the ship occupies without fully interacting with it. Olivia frowned. "You're talking about moving the ship partially out of normal space-time? Wouldn't that kill everyone on board?" "Not if we maintain a dimensional anchor in regular space," Alan said, showing her more equations. "The field would create a kind of bubble where the ship exists in both states simultaneously." "And you can build this?" Olivia asked skeptically. Alan smiled for the first time. "With your help, I think I can." In a secure conference room aboard Earth's orbital command station, Captain Jack Bennett studied reports with intelligence analyst Eric Daniels. Eric was a civilian specialist, short and wiry with intense eyes that missed nothing. "We've analyzed all communications we could intercept," Eric explained, pointing to translation efforts on a large screen. "The Zylaxians are an empire spanning multiple galaxies. They've conquered dozens of species. Why? Jack asked. Resources? Territory? Partly, Eric replied. But there seems to be a cultural component too. They have a rigid hierarchy based on technological advancement. When they encounter a new species, they immediately assess their technology. If it's primitive by their standards, they conquer. If it's advanced enough, they offer alliance. And they decided we were primitive, Jack said grimly. Exactly. But here's something interesting. They have a clear pattern of behavior that goes back centuries. They rarely change tactics or develop new technologies. They've been using the same weapons and shields for generations. Jack leaned forward. That could be important. Can we use that somehow? Maybe, Eric said. If Dr. Murphy's innovations are as revolutionary as Admiral Powell believes, we might surprise them. They don't seem to handle surprises well. Meanwhile, in the Defiance engine room, Alan and Olivia worked day and night implementing his designs. The ship's power core had been completely rebuilt around a new type of reactor that drew energy from quantum fluctuations between dimensions. The power output is incredible, Olivia said as they ran tests. It's nearly triple what our best reactors could achieve before. Alan nodded, but his face showed concern. The challenge isn't generating power. It's controlling it. One miscalculation and we could tear a hole in space-time. That would be bad, Olivia said with a small smile. Very bad, Alan agreed. As weeks turned into months, the Defiant was transformed from the inside out. While the exterior remained largely unchanged to maintain its recognizable silhouette, the interior systems were revolutionized. The dimensional displacement field generators were installed throughout the hull. The weapon systems were reconfigured to utilize principles of Alan's energy manipulation theories. The propulsion system was enhanced to allow maneuvers that would have torn apart the old design. Not everyone was convinced. During a progress review, Admiral Powell faced resistance from other military leaders. These technologies are untested, argued General William Harris, a veteran of Earth's earlier conflicts. We should focus on building more ships with proven systems. More ships with systems that failed against the Xylaxians, Powell countered. We need a new approach. Dr. Murphy's theories are sound, added Dr. Sophia Lee, the Defense Council's scientific advisor. Unconventional, yes, but the mathematics support his conclusions. Theory and practice are different things, Harris insisted, which is why we're testing these systems on one ship first, Powell said firmly. If the Defiant proves successful, we'll implement the technologies across the fleet. The argument was settled 3 days later, when long-range sensors detected Xylaxian scout ships. Near Jupiter's moons, Earth needed the Defiant ready, whether everyone believed in the new technology or not. On the day of the relaunch, Captain Bennett stood with Alan and Olivia in the Defiant's newly redesigned engine room. Will it work? Jack asked simply. Alan glanced at Olivia before answering. The simulations look promising. The dimensional displacement field should reduce weapon impacts by about 70%. The enhanced weapons should penetrate their shields more effectively. But honestly, Captain, we won't know for sure until we're in combat. Jack nodded. Good enough for me. Welcome to the crew, Dr. Murphy. As of now, you're officially our Chief Science Officer. What? Alan blinked in surprise. I'm not military. I'm just here to implement the systems and monitor them in action, Jack. Finished for him. We need you on board, Doctor. No one else understands these systems like you do. 3 hours later, the USS Defiant disconnected from the orbital shipyard. Its engines glowed with a new, unusual energy signature as it moved away from Earth. From the bridge, Captain Bennett gave the order. Set course for Jupiter. Let's see what this ship can really do. As the Defiant accelerated to its new maximum speed, much faster than had been possible before, Alan stood beside Olivia in engineering, watching the power readings with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Do you think we're ready? Olivia asked, quietly. Alan thought about the countless simulations they'd run, the endless calculations and recalculations, the sleepless nights perfecting every detail. I think we have to be, he replied. Because they're coming, ready or not. The warship that shocked the universe. Part 3. The USS Defiant moved swiftly through space, its engines glowing with a strange blue-green light that hadn't been seen on any human ship before. On the bridge, Captain Jack Bennett sat in his command chair watching as the ship approached Jupiter's orbit. "Status report," Jack ordered. Lieutenant Susan Blackwood looked up from her tactical station. "All systems functioning normally, Captain. The new power core is operating at 93% efficiency, better than we expected." "Any sign of the Xylaxian scouts?" Jack asked. "Not yet," Susan replied. "But our new sensors have twice the range of the old ones. We'll spot them long before they see us." Lieutenant Frank Martinez, the weapons officer, turned in his chair. "Captain, I've been studying the data from our previous encounter. I've made some adjustments to our targeting, systems that should work better with Dr. Murphy's weapons enhancements." "Good work, Lieutenant," Jack said with a nod. "Everyone stay alert. We don't know exactly what we're heading into." In engineering, Alan Murphy and Olivia Grant monitored the new systems carefully. The dimensional displacement field generators hummed softly throughout the ship, ready to be activated at a moment's notice. "Power fluctuations are within acceptable parameters," Olivia reported, checking the readings on her console. "The field generators are stable." Alan nodded, but his face showed concern. "I'm still worried about the field intensity. If we push it too hard, we could lose the dimensional anchor." "What happens then?" Olivia asked. "Best case? The field collapses and we take full damage from enemy weapons. Worst case?" Alan shrugged. "We slip entirely into another dimension with no way back." Olivia was about to respond when the ship-wide alert sounded. "Battle stations! All hands to battle stations!" Back on the bridge, Susan's voice was tense. "Captain, sensors have detected 3 Xylaxian warships near Ganymede. They're attacking a civilian transport." Jack's face hardened. "Time to intercept?" 8 minutes at current speed," replied Linda Moore from the helm. "Push it to maximum," Jack ordered. "Lieutenant Blackwood, what's the status of the civilian ship?" Susan checked her readings. "It appears to be a passenger transport from the Europa colony. Their shields are failing, life support is damaged. They have maybe 15 minutes before catastrophic failure." Lieutenant Jameson hailed the transport. "Tell them help is coming," Jack said to his communications officer. Then he activated the ship-wide comm system. "This is the captain. In 7 minutes we will engage the enemy. This is what we've prepared for. Trust your training and trust each other." He switched to a private channel. "Engineering, this is the captain. Are the new systems ready?" "As ready as they'll ever be," Alan's voice replied. "But remember, Captain, this is all theoretical. We've never actually tested the displacement field in combat." "Well, we're about to," Jack said grimly. As the Defiant approached Ganymede, the 3 Xylaxian ships came into view on the main screen. They were the same blade-like design the crew had encountered before, their purple-black hulls absorbing the light from nearby Jupiter. "They've spotted us," Susan reported. "They're breaking off their attack on the transport and moving to intercept." "Good," Jack said. "That gives the civilians some breathing room. Lieutenant Martinez, target the lead ship. Prepare to fire on my command." Frank's fingers moved over his console. "Weapons locked, Captain." "Lieutenant Blackwood, activate the dimensional displacement field." Susan pressed a sequence of commands. Throughout the ship, the new field generators increased their output. A slight shimmer rippled across the hull as the Defiant partially shifted into an adjacent dimension while maintaining its anchor in normal space. "Field active and stable," Susan reported. "Helm, evasive pattern delta," Jack ordered. "Let's see what this ship can really do." The Defiant moved with surprising speed and agility, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible before. The refit. The Xylaxian ships fired their blue energy beams, but something remarkable happened. Most of the energy passed through the space the Defiant occupied, causing only minimal impact to the ship's systems. "They hit us, but the displacement field worked," Susan exclaimed. "We only took 30% of the expected damage." "Shields holding at 95%, added Frank. Jack allowed himself a small smile. "Lieutenant Martinez, return fire." The Defiant's weapons released beams of energy that pulsed with an unusual rhythm, changing frequency as they traveled. When they struck the lead Xylaxian ship, they penetrated its shields with far more effectiveness than in their previous encounter. Direct hit, Frank reported. Their shields are down to 60% with just one volley. In engineering, Alan and Olivia watched the power readings with growing excitement. It's working, Olivia said. The frequency modulation is breaking through their shield harmonics just like you predicted. Alan nodded but kept his eyes on the monitors. Don't celebrate yet. The field is drawing more power than we anticipated. We need to be careful. Back on the bridge, Jack ordered another attack run. Take us in closer. Target their weapons systems. The Defiant swooped toward the alien vessels, firing another series of precisely aimed shots. 2 of the 3 Xylaxian ships took heavy damage, their weapon systems flickering and failing. But the 3rd ship managed to reposition itself and fired a concentrated beam directly at the Defiant's stern. The ship shuddered under the impact. They've adapted their targeting, Susan called out. They found a weak spot in our field pattern. Shields down to 70%, Frank reported. Minor damage to Deck 4. Jack keyed his comm. Engineering, they're finding ways through the field. Can you adjust the pattern? We're on it, Alan's voice replied tensely. Reconfiguring now. The Defiant shook again as another hit landed. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. Captain, Susan said urgently. The lead Xylaxian ship is powering up some kind of heavy weapon. Energy readings are off the charts. Jack made a quick decision. All power to forward weapons. Lieutenant Martinez, target their power core and fire everything we've got. The Defiant unleashed its full arsenal at the lead Xylaxian vessel. The energy beams cut through the weakened alien shields and struck the ship's central section. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a series of explosions rippled across the alien vessel, tearing it apart from within. Direct hit, Frank shouted. Their power core is destabilizing. Get us to a safe distance, Jack ordered. The Defiant pulled away just as the Xylaxian ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light and energy. The shockwave hit the Defiant, causing the ship to rock violently, but the displacement field absorbed much of the impact. The 2 remaining Xylaxian ships, damaged and suddenly facing an opponent that could actually hurt them, began to retreat. They're running, Susan said in disbelief. Jack watched the enemy ships flee. Let them go. Our priority is the civilian transport. Helm, take us to the transport. Lieutenant Jameson, tell them we're coming to assist. As the Defiant approached the damaged transport, Jack felt a mixture of triumph and caution. They had won their first real battle against the Xylaxians, but this was just the beginning. In engineering, Alan and Olivia were already analyzing the data from the battle. The field needs refinement, Alan said, pointing to several readouts. They found a way to target specific points where the dimensional overlap was weakest. Olivia nodded. But it worked, Alan. It actually worked. Your crazy theories saved this ship and everyone on board. Alan allowed himself a small smile. This was just one battle. We have a lot more work to do before. He was interrupted as the ship-wide comm activated. This is the captain. I want to commend everyone for their outstanding performance today. The Defiant and her crew have just made history. For the first time, humanity has successfully defeated Xylaxian warships in direct combat. There was a pause before Jack continued. But this is just the beginning. The Xylaxians now know we can hurt them. They'll be back, and next time they'll be better prepared. So will we. Bennett out. As the announcement ended, Alan looked at the data flowing across his screens. The captain was right. The Xylaxians would be back. But for the first time since the aliens had appeared, humanity had hope. They had proved that despite being technologically behind, human innovation and adaptability could overcome even the most advanced enemy. The USS Defiant continued its mission, assisting the damaged transport and preparing for the battles to come. The ship that had once retreated from alien attackers had returned stronger than ever, ready to defend humanity and shock the universe with what humans could accomplish when pushed to their limits. The warship that shocked the universe. Part 4 news of the Defiant's victory spread quickly across human space. Video footage of the battle, captured by the civilian transport's external cameras, played on screens in homes and public spaces throughout Earth's colonies. People who had lived in fear since the first Xylaxian attack now felt something new: hope. At Earth's main shipyard, Admiral Diane Powell addressed the United Earth Defense Council. Behind her, large screens showed diagrams of the Defiant's new systems. The dimensional displacement field and enhanced weapon systems have proven effective in combat, she said. I recommend immediate implementation across our fleet, starting with our largest warships. General William Harris, who had been skeptical of Alan Murphy's theories, nodded in agreement. I was wrong about Dr. Murphy's innovations. The Defiant's success speaks for itself. But retrofitting our entire fleet will take time, and intelligence suggests the Xylaxians won't give us that time. Admiral Powell's expression grew serious. You're right. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity in Xylaxian territory. They're gathering a much larger force than we've seen before. How much time do we have? Asked another council member. 2 weeks, maybe less, Powell replied. And there's more. We've intercepted transmissions indicating their supreme commander is personally overseeing this operation. They're not just sending a battle group. They're sending a fleet. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiant, Alan Murphy worked tirelessly with Olivia Grant to improve the ship's systems based on data from their recent battle. Alan had lost weight, and dark circles under his eyes showed his lack of sleep, but he refused to slow down. The Xylaxians targeted the weak points in our field pattern, he explained to Captain Bennett during a briefing. We need to make the pattern more random, less predictable. Can you do that? Jack asked. I think so, Alan replied. But it will require more power, which means pushing the reactor harder. Is that safe? Olivia and Alan exchanged glances. Define. Safe, Olivia said with a small smile. Jack sighed. Just do what you can. Based on the intelligence reports, we'll need every advantage we can get. The door to the briefing room slid open, and Lieutenant Susan Blackwood entered. Sorry to interrupt, Captain, but you need to see this. She activated the room's main display, showing a tactical map of the solar system. A large cluster of red dots was moving toward Earth. Xylaxian fleet? Jack asked. Susan nodded. 20 capital ships and at least 30 support vessels. They'll reach the edge of our system in 4 days. Jack studied the display, his face grim. That's a lot more than we expected, and sooner too. He turned to Alan. How quickly can you implement those improvements? 3 days minimum, Alan said. And that's if we work around the clock. Then that's what we'll do, Jack decided. Lieutenant Blackwood, inform Earth Command of the situation. Tell them we're staying on the front line. Back on Earth, Admiral Powell received the Defiant's transmission. She immediately called an emergency meeting with the Defense Council, the ME. Xylaxian fleet will arrive in 4 days, she informed them. Our own fleet is still being retrofitted with Dr. Murphy's technology. Only 3 ships have been fully upgraded. Then we need to bring the Defiant back to help defend Earth, General Harris argued. Powell shook her head. Captain Bennett has requested permission to act as a forward scout. The Defiant's enhanced sensors can gather critical intelligence about the enemy formation. 1 ship against 20, Harris said incredulously. That's suicide. Not necessarily, Powell replied. The Defiant has already proven it can outmaneuver Xylaxian vessels. Captain Bennett doesn't plan to engage the entire fleet directly. His strategy is hit-and-run tactics, gather intelligence, disrupt their formation, and possibly disable a few of their ships before our main fleet engages. After much debate, the Council approved Bennett's plan. The Defiant would remain on the front line while Earth's other ships prepared for battle. 3 days later, the Defiant waited at the edge of the solar system. The ship had been modified. According to Alan's specifications, its dimensional displacement field now operating in a constantly shifting pattern that would be harder for the Xylaxians to target. On the bridge, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Every crew member understood what was at stake. Xylaxian fleet detected, Susan announced. They're approaching from the expected vector. On screen, Jack ordered. The main view screen showed a formation of Xylaxian ships moving in perfect alignment. At the center was a vessel much larger than the others, a massive blade-shaped ship with glowing purple patterns across its hull. "That must be their flagship," Jack said. "Lieutenant Jameson, are you recording all of this?" "Yes, sir," Eric Jameson replied from his communications station, transmitting data back to Earth Command in real time. "Good. Helm, prepare for evasive. Pattern Gamma. Lieutenant Martinez, target one of their smaller vessels on the outskirts of their formation. We'll hit them and fade back before they can respond in force." The Defiant's engines powered up, its new propulsion system allowing it to accelerate much faster than any other human ship. It darted toward the edge of the Xylaxian formation, moving so quickly that the enemy had little time to react. "Dimensional displacement field active," Susan reported. "Fire when ready, Lieutenant Martinez," Jack ordered. The Defiant fired its enhanced weapons at one of the smaller Xylaxian vessels. The beams penetrated the alien ship's shields and struck its propulsion system, causing it to fall out of formation. "Direct hit," Frank called out. "Their engines are disabled." "Helm, get us out of here," Jack ordered. "Full speed to Sector 47. The Defiant turned and accelerated away as several Xylaxian ships broke formation to pursue. Thanks to its enhanced engines, the Earth ship easily outpaced them, disappearing into the darkness of space. Over the next 12 hours, the Defiant continued its hit-and-run tactics, attacking from different angles, disabling several more enemy vessels and gathering valuable data on the Xylaxian fleet's capabilities and formation patterns. After each attack, the ship would retreat to a different location, using the rings of Saturn for cover, the atmosphere of Neptune to mask their signature, and the gravitational eddies of the Kuiper Belt to perform maneuvers no other ship could manage. In engineering, Alan and Olivia worked frantically to maintain the ship's systems, which were being pushed to their limits. "The reactor is running hot," Olivia reported during their 5th attack run. "We can't keep this pace up much longer." "Just a little more," Alan said, making adjustments to the power distribution network. "Every piece of data we gather helps Earth's chances." After their 8th successful attack, the Xylaxians changed tactics. Instead of trying to pursue the Defiant with individual ships, they tightened their formation and increased their defensive perimeter. "They're adapting," Susan observed on the bridge. "They've realized they can't catch us, so they're focusing on protecting their flagship." Jack nodded. "Which confirms our suspicion. The flagship is vital to their operation. Lieutenant Jameson, transmit all our data to Earth Command, include our analysis of their formation changes." "Yes, sir," Jameson replied. Just then, the ship rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. "What was that?" Jack demanded. Susan checked her readings. "Some kind of long-range weapon fired from their flagship. It almost pierced our displacement field completely." "Damage report," Jack called out. "Minor damage to the port nacelle," Frank replied. "Shields holding at 85%. But if they hit us directly with that weapon..." Jack understood the implication. "We've done what we came to do. Helm, set course for Earth. Maximum speed. It's time to rejoin the fleet for the final battle." As the Defiant sped toward Earth, leaving the Xylaxian fleet behind, Jack knew that the real test was yet to come. Their hit-and-run tactics had been successful, but soon they would have to face the full might of the Xylaxian armada in direct combat. In his quarters, Jack recorded a personal log. "We've gathered valuable intelligence and disrupted the enemy's advance. But the truth is we're still outnumbered and outgunned. The coming battle will determine the fate of humanity. All we can do is fight with everything we have, and trust that human ingenuity will find a way, as it always has throughout our history." He paused, then added quietly, "I believe it will." The warship that shocked the universe. Part 5 Earth's combined fleet gathered in orbit around the planet. 12 large warships formed the main battle line, including 3 that had been fully upgraded with Alan Murphy's technology. Smaller vessels moved into supporting positions, creating a defensive web around humanity's homeworld. The USS Defiant rejoined the fleet just hours before the Xylaxian armada arrived. The ship showed signs of the battles it had fought, scorch marks on its hull, patched sections where emergency repairs had been made. But it still flew proudly, a symbol of humanity's resistance. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Jack Bennett addressed his crew. "I won't lie to you. We're about to face the greatest challenge humanity has ever encountered. The Zalaxians outnumber us, and their technology is still ahead of ours in many ways. But we have something they don't. The will to adapt, to innovate, to find solutions where none seem possible." He looked around at the determined faces of his bridge crew. Lieutenant Martinez, Lieutenant Blackwood, Lieutenant Jameson, Lieutenant Moore, you've all performed beyond expectations. Whatever happens today, it has been an honor to serve with you. He paused. Now battle stations. The enemy will be here soon. In engineering, Alan Murphy worked feverishly with Olivia Grant on one final modification to the ship's systems. His hands trembled slightly from exhaustion and too much caffeine, but his mind remained sharp. "If we reroute power from the secondary systems through the main deflector," he explained, "we might be able to create a feedback pulse that could disrupt their flagship's weapons. That would drain almost all our reserve power," Olivia warned. "If it doesn't work, we'd be defenseless." Alan nodded grimly. "It's a last resort, only if all else fails." The ship-wide comm system activated. "This is Admiral Powell to all ships. Zylaxian fleet has entered Earth orbit. All vessels assume defensive positions. Remember your training and protect each other. Good luck." On the main view screen, the Zylaxian armada appeared, 20 capital ships and dozens of smaller vessels in a tight formation. At the center, the massive flagship loomed like a dark blade against the stars. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. "The Admiral is hailing all ships," Jameson reported. On screen, Jack ordered. Admiral Powell's face appeared. "Captain Bennett, based on the intelligence your ship gathered, we believe the Zylaxian flagship carries a superweapon capable of destabilizing planetary atmospheres. It must be neutralized at all costs." Jack straightened. "We'll take care of it, Admiral." "I suspected you'd say that," Powell replied with a small smile. "Very well. The rest of the fleet will engage their supporting vessels and create an opening for you. Good hunting, Captain." The transmission ended and Jack turned to his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Blackwood, analysis of that flagship?" Susan studied her readings. "Its shields are substantially stronger than the other vessels we've encountered. Its weapon systems are concentrated in the forward section. There appears to be a vulnerable point near what we believe is their engine core, but it's well protected by their formation." Jack nodded. "Lieutenant Martinez, target that section when we get a clear shot. Lieutenant Moore, plot an approach vector that uses the rest of our fleet for cover until the last moment." "Aye, Captain," they both replied. Jack opened a channel to engineering. "Dr. Murphy, we'll need everything the ship has. Push the systems to their limits." "Understood, Captain," Alan's voice replied. "Just be aware that the displacement field can't take sustained fire from multiple ships at once. We'll need to move fast." The battle began moments later. Earth's fleet engaged the Zylaxian vessels, energy beams and explosive weapons filling the space between the opposing forces. The 3 ships equipped with Murphy's technology performed remarkably well, their displacement fields allowing them to absorb punishment that would have destroyed them otherwise. The Defiant moved through the chaos of battle, staying behind larger Earth vessels for cover, working its way steadily toward the Zylaxian flagship. Occasionally, enemy weapons fire would strike the ship, causing it to shudder, but the displacement field held. "The fleet is creating our opening," Susan reported. 2 Zylaxian ships have broken from the flagship's defensive screen to engage our cruisers. "That's our chance," Jack said. "Helm, take us in, full speed." The Defiant accelerated, darting through the gap in the enemy formation. Immediately, several Zylaxian vessels turned to intercept them, firing their blue energy beams. "Evasive maneuvers," Jack ordered. "Maintain course to the flagship." The ship rocked as enemy fire struck them. "Displacement field at 60% and dropping," Susan called out. "Multiple impacts." In engineering, warning lights flashed across control panels. "The field generators are overheating," Olivia reported to Alan. "We can't take much more of this." Alan made rapid adjustments. rerouting emergency power to the forward generators. We just need to hold together a little longer. On the bridge, Frank Martinez announced, "Captain, I have a firing solution on the flagship's vulnerable section, but we'll need to get closer and drop our displacement field to channel maximum power to weapons." Jack gripped the arms of his chair. "Do it. Lieutenant Moore, take us in as close as you can. Lieutenant Blackwood, drop the field on Martinez's mark." The Defiant surged forward, taking hit after hit as it approached the massive Xylaxian flagship. Damage reports flooded in from all sections of the ship. A panel exploded near the science station and smoke began to fill the bridge. "Now!" Frank shouted when they reached the optimal position. "Displacement field offline," Susan confirmed. "All power to weapons." "Fire everything we've got," Jack ordered. The Defiant unleashed every weapon in its arsenal, the energy beams focusing on a single point on the flagship's hull. For a tense moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the beams penetrated the alien vessel's shields, striking its vulnerable section. But the flagship didn't explode or show signs of serious damage. Instead, it turned its massive forward weapon toward Earth, a purple glow building at its tip. "They're powering up the superweapon," Susan reported. "Our attack wasn't enough." Jack hit his comm. "Murphy, we need that feedback pulse now." In engineering, Alan and Olivia exchanged a look. "Initiating feedback pulse," Alan said, activating the emergency system they had prepared. The Defiant's main deflector began to glow brightly as it channeled all remaining power into a concentrated beam. The pulse shot out, striking the flagship's superweapon just as it was about to fire. The effect was immediate and catastrophic, not for Earth but for the Xylaxian vessel. The feedback pulse created a resonance cascade in their weapon system, sending destructive energy surging back through their ship. Multiple explosions erupted across the flagship's hull. "It's working," Frank exclaimed. "Their weapon system is overloading. Get us out of here," Jack ordered. "Maximum reverse thrust." The Defiant's engines strained as the ship pulled away from the doomed flagship. Behind them, the massive alien vessel was consumed by a series of increasingly violent explosions as its power core destabilized. The destruction of their flagship threw the remaining Xylaxian forces into disarray. Several vessels immediately jumped to lightspeed and fled. Others continued fighting but without coordination or purpose. Earth's fleet pressed its advantage, targeting the confused enemy ships one by one. Within an hour, the battle was over. Humanity had won. The Defiant, severely damaged but still intact, limped back to the main fleet. In his chair, Captain Jack Bennett allowed himself to relax for the first time in days. "Casualties?" he asked quietly. 12 injured, including Dr. Murphy," Susan reported. "No fatalities." Jack nodded, relief visible on his face. "Send the news to Earth. Let them know the threat has ended." 3 weeks later, a formal ceremony was held at Earth Command headquarters. The crew of the USS Defiant stood in formation as Admiral Powell presented them with medals for their service. Alan Murphy, his arm still in a sling from injuries sustained during the battle, received special recognition for his revolutionary technology. Dr. Murphy's innovations didn't just save Earth, Admiral Powell announced to the assembled crowd. They changed how we understand physics itself. And in doing so, they showed the galaxy something important. That humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our ships, but our ability to think differently, to solve problems in ways that no one else has considered. As the ceremony concluded, Jack found Alan staring out a window at the stars. "Thinking about what's next?" Jack asked. Alan nodded. "We've already received a formal request for diplomatic relations from 3 species previously dominated by the Xylaxian Empire. They're fascinated by our technology." "And the Xylaxians themselves?" "Their supreme commander survived," Alan said. "Initial communication suggests they're reevaluating their entire approach to interspecies relations. Apparently, we're the first civilization in their recorded history to defeat them in battle." Jack smiled. "We shocked them." "We shocked the entire universe," Alan corrected. "And this is just the beginning." Above them, visible through the window, the USS Defiant orbited Earth. Repairs were nearly complete on the ship that had changed humanity's future among the stars. not through overwhelming power, but through innovation, courage, and the uniquely human ability to find hope even in the darkest moments.